What's up, YouTube? So today we're going to go over how to build an enclosure for the sub accessories such as the amp, capacitor, equalizer, all that stuff. So we're going to go over how to build a box out of MDF, and let's get started. Okay, so we're going to put the enclosure right there in the center. It's almost going to create like a middle step for the kids to get around and over, and it won't get beat up by the dog and getting in and out. So it's kind of gonna be similar to this, but it's actually gonna look good and professional. Okay, so we're gonna figure out where we want to put it, which is gonna be in the center section right here. And so now we're just gonna measure this distance. We're not gonna go all the way to the edge. We're gonna stop where it comes up at a lip. So about here to there. And then however wide we want to go. I'm going to take this width right here because of all the accessories it's holding. So after you figure out the width and the length that you want on it, now we're going to figure out the height. So I wanted it about as tall as the capacitor, just with a little space. So we're going to go from about here to there, make that measurement. All right. So we have our board of MDF in the garage, and now we're just going to do our measurements. So this is going to be the length of it. This is going to be the bottom side length. They're exactly the same. 18 inches, 36 inches. Now these are going to be the sides right here, and the other side, that's exactly the same. So now that we got our lines drawn, we're going to go ahead and cut those out. So this is what it's going to look like with all the pieces cut out. Now there is going to be a bevel on one side and then not on the other. We're just going to keep all the bevels pointed the same direction. How this is going to go in, you're not going to see it, but if you mount it in some other direction, you might be able to see the bevels. All right, so now we're going to move to the next step. Okay, starting with one side at a time, we're going to prop this board up. We're going to use our level right there and make sure it's completely at 90 degrees. Then we're gonna take this other piece and we're gonna put a bead of glue down that side. Gonna slide it in there like such. And then we're going to clamp it. I'll show you how to make sure it's all perfectly 90'd in just a second. So you're gonna wanna apply your glue. Just a thin bead will do. When it pushes out, it'll spread. And then anything left on the outside, you can just wipe off with a rag. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and press it onto here. So with it pressed together like that, we're gonna use the clamp to hold it in place. Now we're gonna take our 90 here, whatever size you have, big ones, small ones. And now we are going to make sure it's squared up. And then you're going to check the bottom as well. With that done, you're just going to let it dry for about 15 minutes. Okay, so now that's what it's going to look like when this side's done. Now we're just going to repeat the same exact process on this side. Okay, this is what the box looks like. The side's on. So now we're going to do the bottom piece, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, our box is complete. The reason we're not doing these outside pieces is because I want the amp and the capacitor and the lock system to have airflow between it so it doesn't bake itself inside here. So also I'm gonna have the cords running through the back right here, and then I want to have the adjustments in the front. So that's it. So now we're gonna switch to the next segment, which is leather. We're gonna have this vinyl material I've had forever. We're gonna go ahead and put this on our box. First thing we're gonna do is measure the width. And then we're gonna measure the complete length. So we'll do that over here. So we're just gonna measure the width, and then we're gonna measure the length. So we're gonna take our long level. We're gonna get a straight edge first. So you're gonna take it, line it up, and then you're gonna make a mark to cut down. So we have one side completely straight. Okay, with that straight edge cut, now we need to figure out how much we need to cut this length. So we're gonna measure across here. Doesn't be our base number, but it's gonna fold in and under. And so glue the seam down below and on the inside so you won't see it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna measure this. We're gonna take in consideration an inch. Then we're gonna measure the halfway point on the inside. And then make sure you measure the inch and the halfway point on the inside. So basically, full, both sides. And then that's how wide you want it to be. Okay, so I wanted 23 inches total. So as you see the little marks I made, to mark 23 inches, you simply just take it on the bottom and then mark where it's at and just go down the line. Then once that's done, you're gonna take your long level and then you're gonna make a line to cut. Okay, this is what it looks like, all laid out. And then now we're going to take this off and we're gonna spray a nice thin layer of this stuff on all of the vinyl. And then we'll start by putting this side up top, halfway. This is gonna be the bottom side. And to hold it tight, we're gonna put a couple staples in here. And then that'll allow us to make this super tight and then just work around pulling everything super tight till we get to this side. Side will come up and over and then lay over the staples, and we'll just finish it off like that. It's because this will be on the bottom. If you wanted to make it a really clean look, you could have this edge on one of these edges, and then it looked just like a seam on the side. All right, so this is what it's gonna look like. With the glue on. It dries pretty instantly, so you're gonna have to work quickly. But don't be afraid to add more glue. And you can rip it off along the way as you're going and then reapply glue and just stretch it tight. But just make sure is you stretch it tight, because these materials like to stretch over time, especially in the heat, and that would cause wrinkles. It's not 100% perfect, but it's good enough for what I'm doing. So now we're gonna dive in and we're gonna try to do these sides. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so there's a couple different methods to do the side. I'll show you two of them. The first one you could do is basically like the present. So you're just gonna wrap that in, wrap other side, see how it creates that fold. And then wrap up the bottom, like such. Glue it in. Or the second one you could do, which is gonna just create a kind of thinner seam on the inside, is you could just cut this piece from here directly to there and repeat that on all four corners. That way it allows you just to fold that in, glue it, fold in the side, glue it, side and bottom. Now, when you cut the corners, if you decide to do that method, do not go all the way to the end, because then you'll see a split. Always come back about 1.5 inches from it, and then that'll still allow the pull in there to look like one seam piece, single piece. Okay, so this is what it's gonna look like when you get it all wrapped up. Not too bad. Now, I do want to point out a few things. Any minor blemishes you have when you put it together will show through on most materials. Now, as you see, I see that where the seam was, we could have smoothed that out more, but it's just fine for our use. So just be cautious of that. Also be cautious of your seam. This is what you will have. This is fine for me. This is just on the bottom. You could hide it in a corner, but that's what I did. And also staples will always come through on most fabrics. So just depending what you use, just keep that in mind. Okay, so now we can see the inside seam. So as you see, I left the space. You could carry it over and completely finish this out. And then also I had to cut the sides because of this leftover material. The sides are very difficult to do, so don't lose hope on it. It's not gonna be perfect, but this is kind of what you're shooting for. A nice little 90-degree fold in there and then seam down. Okay, so now for the next step, what I would do is I would line the inside. Now that I stapled all the corners down so it won't ever lift, is I'd line it inside with some sort of felt or something like that. All right, so now we're gonna take our inner piece of material. I'm gonna use this kind of foam-like material that I have laying around. And I'm just gonna cover the two sides, the bottom, and then the other side. I'm not gonna worry about the top, you'll never see it. So I just took my measuring tape inside, measured the whole distance, transferred it over to here, made the scribe, and then I'm going to use this piece of MDF, which is the width of it, to measure up the sides and then cut the sides to length as well. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and put our inner liner in. I stapled the top of one side so it stays, and now I'm gonna use my adhesive spray. I'm gonna spray the whole thing. I'm gonna run it all the way through, and I'm gonna use clips to hold down the corners. Okay, as you see, we have pretty much a finished project. I'm keeping these on here to keep these corners down so it dries properly. And then I put some staples up at the top to make sure this foam never falls down. So yeah, it came out pretty. Okay, as you see, this is how you're gonna be viewing it. And then sometimes you'll be viewing it like this, and you'll be viewing it like that. So I'm very happy with it. And we'll go to the next step. Okay, here's the final look. All right, so now that we have the box on, we're gonna use this adhesive Velcro, and we're just gonna use that so we don't have to drill any holes into this, and we could remove any of the electronics that we need. So it's pretty self-explanatory there, but now we're just gonna start getting it into the truck and switching everything over. Okay, and that's what it looks like with the electronics in there. Just go ahead and wire it to the center, and we are finished.